Captain Sarah Chen stood at her hidden observation post, watching the main display with practiced patience. The rusty bucket, her masterpiece of deception, drifted through the starlit void of the outer rim, trailing a beautiful helix of plasma that would be irresistible to any pirate worth their salt. The leak wasn't an accident. Nothing about her ship was accidental. 3 contacts, approaching from Sector 7, reported Lieutenant Rodriguez from his sensor station. His fingers danced across the holographic interface, bringing up detailed scans of the incoming vessels. Energy signatures match known Krathak configurations. "Looks like we've caught a big fish this time, Captain." Sarah allowed herself a small smile. The Krathak were notorious among human colonies, sophisticated pirates who prided themselves on their advanced technology and flawless tactical execution. They were also, in her experience, criminally overconfident. "Status of our visual camouflage?" she asked, though she already knew the answer. Her crew ran hourly checks on every system. "Operating at peak deception, Mom," Chief Engineer Puddle responded from her station. "The quantum mesh is making our hull look like it's held together with space tape and prayers. External sensors are showing our power signature fluctuating exactly like a failing reactor core." The rusty bucket continued its seemingly erratic course through space, its movements carefully calculated to appear random and desperate. Years of studying pirate attack patterns had taught them exactly how to appear vulnerable. Every spiral, every drift, every momentary stabilizer failure was choreographed to tell a story. Here was a ship on its last legs, crew too poor or too stupid to maintain it properly, carrying cargo valuable enough to risk flying through this notorious sector. "They're taking the bait," Rodriguez announced, his voice tight with anticipation. "Lid vessel is altering course to intercept. The other 2 are spreading out. Classic Krathak hunting formation." Sarah watched the tactical display as 3 red dots moved with predatory grace toward her ship. The Krathak were known for their distinctive attack pattern. 2 flanking vessels to cut off escape routes, while the main ship moved in for the kill. It was an effective strategy that had spelled doom for countless merchant vessels. "Begin Phase 1, Sarah ordered. "Engineering, initiate the power fluctuation sequence. Communications, prepare the distress beacon but don't activate it yet. Let's make them think we haven't noticed them." The bridge crew responded with quiet efficiency. They'd done this dance dozens of times before. But the Krathak were different. This wasn't some random band of space pirates. These were organized, skilled predators who had terrorized this sector for years. Taking them down would send a message that would ripple through the entire criminal underworld. "Captain," Rodriguez called out, "I'm picking up active scanning from the lead vessel. They're doing their homework." "Let them look," Sarah replied, her smile widening slightly. "Everything they see will tell them exactly what they want to believe. Patel, make sure they get a good look at our damaged port nacelle." The chief engineer manipulated her controls, and one of the ship's engines began emitting a distinctly unhealthy glow. To the pirate's sensors, it would appear to be a critical containment issue waiting to happen. The kind of problem that would make a ship easy prey. "They're increasing speed," Rodriguez reported. "All 3 vessels. They must think we're about to fall apart." Sarah nodded, watching the distance between their ships steadily decrease. The Krathak were moving faster than she'd anticipated, eager to claim their prize before any competitors showed up. That eagerness would cost them dearly. "All hands, prepare for Phase 2, she announced over the ship-wide comm. Throughout the vessel, hidden weapons powered up behind false panels, trap mechanisms moved into standby mode, and crew members took their positions at concealed battle stations. The rusty bucket may have looked like a dying vessel, but beneath its deceptive exterior lurked one of the most sophisticated warships ever built. "Let's give them a proper welcome," Sarah said softly, as the first pirate vessel moved into optimal position. "After all, we'd hate to disappoint our guests." Krathak First Hunter D-Skell stalked through his ship's command center, his scaled skin reflecting the crimson battle lights. His crew worked with practiced precision, preparing for what should have been a routine boarding action. But something felt wrong. Analysis of the target vessel, he demanded, claws clicking against his command console. Primitive human design, approximately 60 years old. His sensor officer reported, multiple eyes blinking in sequence as data scrolled across her screens. Significant structural damage to the outer hull. Their reactor core is showing dangerous instability patterns. Life support is operating at minimal capacity. Skell studied the visual feed of their prey. The human vessel was ugly even by their crude standards. A patchwork of repairs covered its hull like scars, and its movement through space resembled a wounded animal. Easy prey. Too easy. Weapons? He asked, mandibles twitching. If they have any, they're not powered. Their shield generators appear to be offline. They're practically gift-wrapped. First Hunter. That was precisely what bothered him. In 30 cycles of raiding, Diskell had learned that when something appeared too perfect, it usually concealed a fatal flaw. But his crew was already eager for the kill, and his superiors demanded results. Move into docking position, he ordered. Prepare the boarding teams. Full combat loadout. His executive officer, Tyranny, approached with the fluid grace characteristic of their species. First Hunter, is such caution necessary? It's a human garbage go. Our scouts have confirmed they're running minimal crew. Diskell's anterior spines flexed, a sign of irritation among his kind. Humans are vermin, yes, but clever vermin. They survive despite their technological inferiority. That demands respect, even if they don't. The massive Krathak vessel pulled alongside the rusty bucket, dwarfing the human ship. Their advanced docking system extended, searching for a compatible airlock. To their surprise, they found one immediately. An older model, but perfectly maintained. Strange, Tyranny noted. Their docking ring is pristine compared to the rest of the ship. They prioritize escape routes, Diskell replied, but the observation added to his unease. Deploy the boarding parties. Standard spread formation. Full bioscanners active. 3 teams of Krathak warriors, each in gleaming combat armor, moved through the docking tube. Their weapons, a combination of plasma cutters and neural disruptors, were primed for both combat and crowd control. The ship's manifest suggested a crew of 12. They had brought 30 warriors. The first team breached the airlock, moving into a dimly lit corridor. Emergency lighting cast strange shadows, and exposed wiring hung from the ceiling like vines. Their helmet sensors detected breathable atmosphere and normal gravity. First Hunter, we have entered the vessel, the team leader reported. No resistance. No crew visible. The internal layout. It's irregular. Explain, Diskell demanded. The corridor configurations don't match any known human designs. They appear to have modified the internal structure extensively. Navigation is challenging. A second team reported similar findings from another section. The ship's interior was a maze of seemingly random modifications and repairs. Passages that should have led to critical systems instead ended in maintenance bays or storage rooms. First Hunter, the third team's leader's voice carried an edge of concern. We've located some of the crew. They're just standing there, watching us. They appear unarmed. The visual feed showed 3 humans in stained maintenance uniforms, their expressions unnaturally calm. One of them, a female with officer's insignia, actually smiled and waved at the camera. Be careful where you step, she said in perfectly accented Krathak trade speech. This old girl can be a bit temperamental with strangers. Skell felt his spines ripple with primal warning. Something was very, very wrong. He opened his mandibles to order an immediate retreat, but before he could speak, the humans vanished, literally disappeared where they stood. And then the ship's corridors began to move. All teams, fall back to. The communication cut off mid-sentence, replaced by static, and what sounded disturbingly like human laughter. Diskell realized, with growing horror, that they hadn't sprung a trap. They had walked into a predator's open maw. Status report. Skell's voice crackled through increasingly unreliable comm channels as team leader Kavor led his warriors deeper into the rusty bucket's impossible interior. What had started as a straight corridor had somehow become a twisting labyrinth, with walls that seemed to shift when viewed through their peripheral vision. Teams are separated. First Hunter, Kavor reported, his mandibles clicking with agitation. Navigation systems are malfunctioning. The ship's internal structure appears to be reconfiguring itself. 3 of his warriors stood at what had been an intersection moments ago, now transformed into a seamless wall. Their advanced armor, designed to strike fear into their victims, felt increasingly like a cage. The emergency lighting pulsed in patterns that left ghostly afterimages in their vision, making depth perception unreliable. Detecting movement ahead, announced Second Warrior Ix, her weapon trained on a maintenance shaft that definitely hadn't been there before. Multiple signatures, but they're inconsistent. The team watched as what appeared to be standard maintenance robots rolled into view. Their designs were crude, almost primitive. Little more than wheeled platforms with manipulator arms. Several showed signs of obvious damage, jerking and twitching as they moved. Malfunctioning maintenance units, Kavor declared, trying to mask his growing unease. Ignore them. But the robots didn't ignore them. Instead, they began to move with disturbing coordination, their seemingly random twitches forming patterns. Each time the warriors tried to backtrack, they found the machines had somehow flanked them, herding them deeper into the ship's bowels. First Hunter, requesting immediate extraction, Kavor transmitted, only to receive a burst of static in response. Through the interference, he could make out fragments of other teams' communications. Corridors are moving. Weapons systems failing. Can't reach the airlock. The maintenance robots continued their bizarre dance, their damaged appearances belying their precise movements. Kavor realized with growing horror that their apparent malfunctions were actually a form of communication. They were coordinating, strategizing. Fall back. He ordered his team, but as they turned, the corridor behind them had changed. Where there had been a straight passage, now stood a circular chamber with multiple identical exits. The emergency lighting cast overlapping shadows that made it impossible to determine which way they had come. One of his warriors, a veteran of countless raids, pressed his armor-clad hand against a wall. Leader, these surfaces, they're not steel. The composition is changing. Kavor examined the wall himself, watching in disbelief as what appeared to be rust stains began to flow like liquid, forming complex patterns before his eyes. Their sensors, supposedly the most advanced in known space, couldn't identify the material. Up ahead, Ix called out, "Human crew members." Through the shifting corridors, they spotted 3 humans in maintenance uniforms, the same ones they'd seen earlier. But something was wrong with the image. The humans seemed to flicker, their movements too smooth, too calculated. Holograms. Kavor realized. They're not real. "Oh, we're real enough," one of the humans replied, her voice coming not from the hologram, but from all around them. "We're just not where you think we are. Nobody is ever where you think they are on the rusty bucket." The maintenance robots had completely surrounded them now, their primitive appendages transformed into an array of sophisticated tools. The walls continued to shift, and Kavor noticed with mounting dread that the chamber was slowly rotating, defying the ship's artificial gravity. "This isn't a ship," he transmitted to his First Hunter, knowing even as he spoke that the message would never reach him. "It's a living trap. The humans, they've built something impossible." The last thing Kavor saw before the lights changed again was his own reflection in the flowing metal walls. In the distorted surface, his fearsome battle armor looked exactly like what it had become, a cage of their own making, trapping them inside humanity's deadliest creation. The hunt was over. They were now the prey. In the rusty bucket's hidden command center, Sarah Chen watched the chaos unfold across multiple holographic displays. Each screen showed a different group of Krethak pirates struggling to comprehend their situation, their feared combat prowess reduced to desperate confusion. Team 3 has reached the cargo hold, Rodriguez reported, his fingers dancing across the control interface. Initiating compression sequence. On one of the screens, a group of pirates found themselves in what appeared to be a standard cargo hold. Their sensors would tell them it was 30 meters square. In reality, it was far more interesting than that. Starting subtle, Sarah ordered. Let's not rush the performance. The cargo hold's walls began to move inward, so slowly that it was almost imperceptible. The pirates wouldn't notice at first. Just a creeping sensation that something wasn't quite right. By the time they realized the truth, the room would be half its original size. Team 2 has discovered the weapon's malfunction, Patil announced with a hint of pride. They're about to learn why we still use physical safeties. Another screen showed a second group of pirates raising their sophisticated plasma weapons, only to find them completely inert. The quantum phase dampeners hidden throughout the ship had reduced their advanced artillery to elaborate paperweights. As they frantically tried to restore power, their armor systems began to fail as well. "Ma'am," Rodriguez called out, "Team 1 is approaching the bridge replica. Want me to give them the full show?" Sarah smiled. The false bridge was one of her favorite tricks. "Make it good, Lieutenant. Let's show them why humans are still alive after all these millennia of trying to kill us." On the main screen, the lead team of pirates burst onto what they thought was the Rusty Bucket's bridge. It looked perfect. Antiquated control stations, flickering displays, even coffee cups left carelessly on consoles. The holographic crew members they'd scattered throughout the ship had led them right to it. "Executing Bridge Protocol Alpha," Rodriguez announced. The pirates spread out, securing what they believed to be the ship's command center. Then the fun began. First, the holographic crew members walked through walls, their images distorting in impossible ways. The control stations began to sink into the floor, while new ones rose from the ceiling. The entire room rotated slowly, independent of the ship's artificial gravity. "Their vitals are spiking," reported Dr. Yang from her medical station. "The psychological impact is significant. The Krathak aren't used to having their reality challenged like this." Sarah watched as the pirates' formation broke down. Their sophisticated combat training meant nothing in an environment that defied physical laws. Every sensor reading contradicted the last. Every tactical decision led them deeper into the trap. "Status of their command ship?" she asked. "Still locked in place," Patil confirmed. "Our quantum binders have completely fused with their hull. Their engines are at full reverse, but they're not going anywhere. Internal communications are completely blocked." The pirates had split into their component teams exactly as planned, each group now isolated in a different section of the ship. Their advanced technology, which they had relied on for so long, was being turned against them in ways they couldn't understand. Team 3 has noticed the cargo hold compression, Rodriguez reported. "They're attempting to breach the walls." "Let them try," Sarah replied. "Those walls are made of adaptive metamaterials. The harder they hit them, the stronger they become." On another screen, Team 2 had resorted to trying to use their armor's enhanced strength to force open a sealed doorway. The door appeared to be simple steel, but each time they made progress, the molecular structure would realign, making it progressively harder to breach. "Message from Team 1's leader," Rodriguez announced. They're offering to surrender." Sarah watched the main screen, where the pirates on the false bridge had backed into a defensive circle, their useless weapons pointed outward at the impossible room around them. "Not yet," she said quietly. "First, they need to understand. This isn't just a trap, it's a lesson. Humanity didn't survive by being the strongest or most advanced. We survived because we learned to turn everything, even our weaknesses, into advantages." The Rusty Bucket continued its work, an intricate machine designed to teach the galaxy's predators why humans were still here, still fighting, still surviving against all odds. First Hunter D. Skell watched in mounting horror as his command ship systems shut down one by one. The docking clamps, which had seemed so primitive, now pulsed with an energy his sensors couldn't identify. Every attempt to disengage resulted in deeper integration with the human vessel. First Hunter. His engineering chief's voice carried an edge of panic. The human ship, it's not just technology. It's evolving. Through the main viewport, Diskel watched as the Rusty Bucket's hull began to change. What they had dismissed as rust and decay transformed into rivers of flowing nanites, cascading across the surface like liquid metal. The exposed wiring they had mocked now pulsed with biosynthetic energy, forming neural pathways that spread like vines across the hull. "Show me the boarding teams," he ordered, but the internal sensors were being blocked by something far more sophisticated than simple jamming. Instead of sensor data, his screens displayed a message in flowing text. "Watching your teams. They're part of the demonstration now." Inside the Rusty Bucket, team leader Kavor and his warriors faced their own nightmare. The maintenance robots they had been evading suddenly stopped their herding behavior. Instead, they began to disassemble themselves, their components flowing together like mercury to form new, more elaborate shapes. "What are we facing?" Kavor demanded into his failing comm system. "This can't be human technology. They're primitives, scavengers, primitives." The voice that answered wasn't Diskel, but rather the human captain they had seen earlier. "You're half right. We are scavengers. We took every technology we encountered, every defeat, every near-extinction event. And we learned. We evolved. This ship isn't just a trap. It's a testament to humanity's greatest strength, our ability to adapt." The walls around Kuvor's team had stopped their subtle movements. Now they flowed like water, the metamaterials revealing their true nature. Quantum circuitry became visible beneath the surface, forming patterns that hurt the eyes to look at. The entire ship was awakening, revealing itself as a single massive organism of integrated technology. In the cargo hold, Team 3 watched in disbelief as their prison transformed. The shrinking walls weren't just moving. They were reaching for them. Tendrils of liquid metal extended from the surfaces, probing the pirates' armor for weaknesses. "You relied on your technology to make you strong," the human captain continued, her voice echoing through every chamber of the ship. "We learned to make our weaknesses into strengths. Every flaw you saw was deliberate. Every malfunction was a trap. Every sign of decay was camouflage." Team 2, still struggling with their disabled weapons, found themselves surrounded by what appeared to be growing crystals. The structures emerged from the walls, refracting light in impossible ways, creating duplicates of the pirates themselves. Soon, they couldn't tell which warriors were real and which were reflections. "Your sensors showed you what you wanted to see," Sarah explained, almost gentle in her revelation. "A dying ship, crewed by incompetent humans. But what you really found was the culmination of centuries of survival, of turning every defeat into a lesson, every near-death into an opportunity to grow stronger." Skell watched through his ship's failing systems as the Rusty Bucket completed its transformation. The decrepit cargo vessel was gone, replaced by something that defied classification. Its hull now rippled with active camouflage technology far beyond anything the Krathak had encountered. The crude weapons ports they had dismissed revealed themselves to be quantum weapon arrays, disguised by metamaterials and holographic technology. "This is humanity's true strength," Sarah's voice concluded. "Not our ships, not our weapons, but our endless capacity to adapt, to survive, to turn our hunters' strength against them. Welcome to the next stage of your education." As the last of his ship's systems fell silent, Diskel finally understood. They hadn't found prey at all. They had stumbled into evolution itself, humanity's response to countless threats, condensed into a single living vessel. The Rusty Bucket wasn't just a trap or a weapon. It was humanity's answer to the galaxy's predators, and it was about to teach them why humans had survived everything the universe had thrown at them. Diskel had fought in 100 battles across the galactic rim. He had faced defense fleets, rival pirates, and even the dreaded Swarm. But nothing in his experience had prepared him for this. His mighty warship, pride of the Krathak fleet, hung helpless in space, bound to the creature that had once appeared to be simple human prey. "Helm, emergency protocols," he ordered, his mandibles clicking rapidly in distress. "Overload the fusion core if you have to. We will not be taken alive." First Hunter, his engineering chief's voice trembled. "Our fusion core, it's been transformed. The human ship has somehow rewritten its quantum structure. It's not even recognizable as Krathak technology anymore." On his command screens, Diskel watched as his ship's systems were not just shut down, but fundamentally altered. The quantum phase technology they had been so proud of was being reprogrammed at the subatomic level. The rusty bucket wasn't just disabling their systems, it was digesting them. "Launch the distress beacon," he commanded, but even as the words left his mouth, he knew it was futile. "I'm afraid we can't allow that." Captain Chen's voice came through their internal speakers, clear as crystal despite their supposedly secure communications. "You see, we're not done with the demonstration yet." Through the viewport, Diskel watched in fascination and horror as the rusty bucket's transformed hull began to extend tendrils of liquid metal and energy toward his ship's weapons arrays. Where they touched, his mighty warship's armor began to change, becoming something new, something hybrid. "Your weapons were impressive," Sarah continued, her tone almost conversational. "We'll adapt them, improve them, add them to our collection, just like we've done with every other technology that's been used against us." Inside the human vessel, the trapped boarding teams were witnessing their own version of this transformation. The ship around them had become a living thing, its corridors breathing, its walls flowing like mercury. Their advanced armor, designed to protect them from any known weapon, was being systematically analyzed and countered by the very air around them. First Hunter. Kavor's desperate transmission somehow made it through the communications blackout. "The humans, they're not just defeating us. They're learning from us. Every tactic we try, every piece of technology we use, they're absorbing it." Skell watched as his secondary bridge displays showed the full extent of their situation. The two support ships that had accompanied them hung motionless in space, caught in some kind of quantum stasis field. Their weapons, shields, and engines, all top-of-the-line Krathak military technology, had been reduced to inert metal by forces he couldn't even begin to understand. "You're wondering how we did this?" Sarah's voice returned, now emanating from everywhere at once. "How primitive humans could create something so far beyond your understanding." The answer is simple. We had excellent teachers. Every species that tried to hunt us, every civilization that tried to wipe us out, they all taught us something valuable. The transformation of both ships accelerated. Diskel could see his proud warship being systematically altered, its very structure being rewritten by the human vessel's impossible technology. The rusty bucket was no longer bothering to maintain its decrepit disguise. Its true form was magnificent and terrifying. A perfect fusion of countless alien technologies, all adapted and improved by human ingenuity. "The rusty bucket isn't just a ship," Sarah explained, as the last of Diskel's command functions went dark. "It's a testament to humanity's greatest talent, our ability to learn from our defeats, to take what our enemies throw at us, and make it our own. Today's hunters become tomorrow's teachers, their strengths absorbed into our ever-growing arsenal of survival tools." As his ship's artificial gravity began to fluctuate, Diskel finally understood the true horror of their situation. They hadn't just sprung a trap, they had become part of an ongoing process of evolution. The humans hadn't built a weapon. They had created something that learned, that grew, that adapted. And now it was learning from them. Sarah Chen walked through the transformed corridors of the rusty bucket, her footsteps echoing on surfaces that rippled like liquid metal in her wake. The ship had fully awakened now, its true nature on display for their captured audience. Behind her walked Lieutenant Rodriguez and Chief Engineer Patel, their expressions a mixture of pride and solemn purpose. "Status of our guests?" Sarah asked, though the ship's neural network had already provided the information directly to her neural implant. "All secure," Rodriguez reported, checking his holoscreen. "Team 1 is contained in the quantum vault, Team 2 is held in the mirror maze, and Team 3 has been secured in the adaptive containment chamber. The Krethak mothership and its escorts are completely integrated into our systems." They reached a section of corridor that simply ceased to exist, replaced by a shimmering quantum interface. Sarah stepped through it, emerging directly onto what had once been Diskel's command bridge. The first hunter stood rigid, his warrior's pride intact despite his defeat, surrounded by his similarly immobilized bridge crew. "First Hunter Diskel," Sarah addressed him formally. "I believe it's time we had a proper conversation." The Krethak commander's mandibles clicked in what might have been anger or respect. It was hard to tell with their species. "You have won, human. Execute us and be done with it." Sarah smiled, settling into what had once been his command chair. The surface adapted instantly to human ergonomics. "Execute you? Why would we waste such an excellent learning opportunity?" She gestured, and the bridge's quantum displays activated, showing the full extent of what the Rusty Bucket had done to the Krethak vessels. Their once mighty warships had been completely transformed, their technology assimilated and improved upon. Even now, the ship's adaptive algorithms were analyzing and integrating their quantum phase weapons and stealth systems. "Your people made the same mistake so many others have," Sarah explained, her tone almost professorial. "You saw our apparent weaknesses as an opportunity. The exposed wiring, the plasma leaks, the structural damage, all of it designed to attract predators like yourselves." "We are warriors," Diskel declared. "We seek worthy prey." "No," Sarah corrected him. "You're teachers, whether you intended to be or not. Every species that has tried to hunt us has taught us something valuable. The swarm taught us about adaptive biology. The mechanoids taught us about quantum integration. And now, your people have taught us about phase shift technology." Through the viewport, they could see the Rusty Bucket's true form emerging. Its hull now incorporated the best elements of Krethak design, seamlessly integrated with dozens of other alien technologies. The ship was evolving in real time, becoming something even more formidable. "What are you?" Diskel asked, his warrior's composure cracking slightly. "We're survivors," Sarah replied simply. "When the first alien species tried to wipe us out, we were nearly defenseless. But we learned. We adapted. We took their technology and improved it. Each subsequent attack made us stronger. This ship, it's the culmination of centuries of learning from our would-be destroyers." She stood, walking to the viewport. The stars beyond seemed to shimmer as the ship's new stealth systems came online, incorporating Krethak innovations with existing human technology. "You won't be executed, First Hunter. Instead, you and your crew will be released with your ships once we're done studying your technology. You'll return to your people with a message. Humanity is not prey. We're not even predators. We're something far more dangerous. We're adapters. You think letting us live shows strength?" Diskel's tone was curious rather than mocking. Sarah turned back to him, her expression serious. "No, letting you live shows intelligence. You'll tell others what you saw here. How a seemingly weak human vessel transformed into something beyond your comprehension. How all your advanced technology was turned against you. And the next time someone sees a damaged human ship limping through space, they'll remember your story." The Rusty Bucket hummed around them, its hybrid systems singing in perfect harmony. It was no longer pretending to be a trap. It had become something more. A living testament to humanity's greatest weapon. Their ability to learn from defeat and emerge stronger. 3 months after the Rusty Bucket incident, First Hunter Diskel stood before the Krethak High Command, his scales dulled from the stress of recent events. The chamber's harsh lighting illuminated the faces of a dozen of his species' most powerful leaders, all waiting to hear his full report. The human vessel was released back into space. High Commander Vexkar asked, his tone dripping with disbelief. After what they did to our ships, our technology, they simply let you go. They did more than that. Diskel responded, activating a holographic display. The image showed his 3 ships, now restored but fundamentally altered. Their hulls bore strange patterns, quantum crystalline structures that seemed to shift and flow even in the static recording. They improved our vessels, enhanced them with hybrid technologies we barely understand. The chamber erupted in murmurs. One of the younger commanders leaned forward, mandibles twitching. And you believe this was intentional, not a show of mercy. Mercy? Diskel's laugh was hollow. No, the humans don't think like predators or prey. They think like a virus that makes its host stronger. Every encounter with them changes both sides, but they're the ones controlling the evolution. The hologram shifted to show the Rusty Bucket's final form, a masterpiece of integrated technologies, beautiful and terrible in its complexity. Several council members physically recoiled from the image. Reports are coming in from across the sector, another commander announced. Pirates, raiders, even legitimate military patrols are avoiding contact with human vessels, especially the damaged ones. The stories have spread. Good, Diskel said firmly. They should be afraid. Not of human weapons or ships, but of what humans represent. They're not just another species fighting for survival. They're the next stage of galactic evolution, and they're dragging the rest of us with them, whether we want to go or not. High Commander Vexkar raised a clawed hand for silence. And what of this, Captain Chen? What message did she want you to deliver to us? Skell's inner eyelids flickered, the Krafak equivalent of a grim smile. She said we should consider ourselves enrolled in humanity's school of survival, that every species that tries to hunt them becomes their teacher, and now it was our turn to learn. The chamber's lights dimmed as he continued. Since our return, our enhanced ships have displayed capabilities we never dreamed possible. But more importantly, they're still changing, still evolving. The humans didn't just defeat us, they infected us with their own adaptability. And now, the youngest commander observed, every potential hunter in the galaxy knows that attacking a human vessel, especially a vulnerable one, might mean becoming part of their next evolution. Skell nodded slowly. The Rusty Bucket still patrols that sector. Sometimes it appears as a damaged freighter, sometimes as a derelict warship. The form doesn't matter. Those who know the story avoid it. Those who don't. He let the thought hang unfinished. Your recommendation, First Hunter, Vexkar demanded. Establish diplomatic relations immediately, Diskel replied without hesitation. Not because we fear them, but because we need to understand them. The humans have found a way to turn combat into collaboration, warfare into evolution. We can either be their willing students or their unwitting teachers. As the council chamber erupted in heated debate, Diskel's hand unconsciously touched the strange medallion he'd been given before leaving the Rusty Bucket. It was a simple thing, seemingly made of ordinary metal, but sometimes, in the right light, it seemed to shift and flow just like the human ship had. Captain Chen's final words echoed in his memory. Every species has to decide whether to fight evolution or embrace it. We chose to embrace it, to learn from every defeat, to grow stronger from every attack. Now it's your turn to choose. Somewhere out in the darkness between the stars, the ship once known as the Rusty Bucket continued its patrol. It no longer needed to maintain its deceptive appearance. Its reputation alone was enough to keep the peace. But sometimes, when the right prey appeared, it would once again become a wounded vessel, leaking plasma and trailing sparks. After all, the evolution of the galaxy was far from complete, and humanity still had so much to learn.